Hello, guys. It's Bailey Lewis Smith from the Joining Me Today podcast here. Before the start of today's episode, before we get into the main portion and stuff like that of today's episode, sorry, and stuff, the interview, stuff like that for this episode. Before we get started, I really want to something and stuff like that I'd like to talk about and stuff like that, and something that I would like to do and stuff like that before we get things started. Very recently. I found out the unfortunate news that somebody who I'd worked with a little bit and stuff like that on the show and stuff like that for the show who had helped me and stuff like that with sort of getting sort of one of my episodes and stuff like that, like sort of bringing it to fruition and stuff like that, and making it happen and stuff. An individual named Jamie Gowers, who is the who is also the drummer and stuff like that for the band As Everything Unfolds. I sort of recently had just found out that he had passed away, and so it was announced and stuff on like was announced by As Everything Unfolds and stuff like that on their like sort of Instagram page and stuff like that. And like I remember when I first sort of found out the news, I I'd literally found it out when I'd got up. Like a lot of people, you go on your phone when you first get up, you know what I mean? And you're scrolling through Instagram, like social media, YouTube, and all that. And I'd seen, I think it was a post, or it was an Instagram story, or it was like something, some sort of post of some kind. I saw sort of the announcement and stuff like that about sort of his passing, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just like in shock. I was like, oh my goodness, you know what I mean? This is somebody who I was just speaking to and stuff like that not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like granted it wasn't in person, but it was still somebody I had a little bit of a conversation with and stuff. And like it wasn't even just sad the fact that he'd passed away, but he was also sort of very young. So, you know what I mean? It's sad that life is like this and stuff, but sort of a death is a bit more shocking when somebody is younger. You know what I mean? It's like it's even more shocking to you and stuff like that when you sort of see and stuff like that somebody and stuff like that of his age, you know what I mean? You wouldn't expect to sort of hear that sort of news and stuff like that of him passing away, to sort of hearing stuff that he had is just incredibly sort of upsetting. At the moment and stuff like that, no cause of death or whatever has been revealed, whether so we don't sort of know about that, and like for very obvious reasons and stuff like that, like I'm not going to speculate on that, you know what I mean? It's not, you know what I mean? It's not sort of my business, it's not my place to say whatsoever and stuff. But yeah, he's somebody who had helped me when he was working at illicit music and stuff like that. He sort of music sort of like management, sort of like band management sort of stuff like that, like organization, that kind of thing. I'd got into contact with him and stuff to try and get High Regard on and stuff like that, who I got on for episode 21. And like I didn't even know he was from As Everything Unfolds and stuff like that. I sort of vaguely knew the band, but I didn't know specifically like him and him being a part of the band. So to me, I was just speaking to a guy who was just managing and stuff a band that I wanted to get on the podcast. And when I found out and stuff like that, he was from this band, whatever, and stuff like that, it was like I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know and stuff. And I really appreciated that, even though he was a guy who was part of this, you know what I mean, band, this sort of well-known band and stuff, this alternative metal band and stuff like that. He still sort of had time for me and stuff like that. He was still willing to help me out and stuff like that to get this episode sorted. You know what I mean? I know I am just sort of I'm just some random guy with some small podcast. You know what I mean? And he, you know what I mean? And he's this guy who's done all of this, like so who did all of this in his career and all that. So like, why would he want to sort of care about some little guy like me? But he did, you know what I mean? And he did sort of, you know what I mean, try to help me and stuff like that, get this episode sort of sorted and stuff. And when sort of people and stuff like that, you know what I mean, help me out, help me with my show or just in life, like it's something that really, really does mean a lot to me. You know what I mean? That people people and stuff like that who make time to be like, I'm going to help this guy out. I'm going to try and help him do this, do that, or sort of listen out and stuff like that for him, whatever. I just appreciate and stuff like that when people and stuff like that do things and stuff like that to like help me out, make time for me, whatever. That really goes a long way for me. So even though I only had a little bit of contact with him, I still massively appreciated the fact that he tried to help me out and stuff like that. He helped me out and stuff like that in getting the high regard episode sorted. And it's just so sad to see that stuff like that he's unfortunately no longer with us. So because and stuff like that he'd sort of had sort of an influence and stuff like that on the show. He'd, what I mean, played a part and stuff like that in this show. I wanted to dedicate and stuff like that this episode to him, like pay tribute to him and stuff like that. Because he really does deserve it and stuff. So yeah, I'd like to sort of send my sort of all of my sort of, like all of my sort of like condolences and stuff like that to his family and stuff like that, to the band and the fans and stuff like that. Send sort of my prayers and all that sort of over to them. And I'd just sort of like to say, like, if you can and stuff like that, when people and stuff like that do help you out, do everything you can and stuff like that to sort of show your appreciation and stuff, even like a little thing, just, what I mean? Like being like, it really, like really means a lot and stuff like that. You helping me out, stuff like that. Don't worry about being cringe, whatever, because like people, it does matter to people and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It really does. And like you never know and stuff like that. If you'll get the chance to say that, you never know what could happen and stuff like that. Like yeah, just sort of appreciate and stuff like that and stuff like that. Like people that make time for you and help you out and stuff like that. And yeah, I just would like to dedicate this episode and stuff like that to him and stuff like that. So like I'd just like to say like just one last little thing. Just thank you. Thank you a lot. Like I know I only spoke to you very, very little, but it really does mean a lot and stuff like that, sort of what you did and stuff like that, like for my channel. Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Joining Me Today podcast presented by me, Bailey Smith. Today, I've got another exciting, fantastic episode for you guys. And just before we jump into anything with this episode and stuff, as you saw and stuff, just for and stuff like that, this section and stuff of the episode and stuff. And once again, I love to sort of pay a tribute and stuff like that, pay sort of my respects and all that to Jamie Gowers and stuff like that, who had recently and stuff just passed away, stuff like that, the drummer for As Everything Unfolds, and who had helped me sort of a little bit and stuff with the show and stuff not too long ago and stuff, helped with my high regard episode and stuff like that, and sort of just want to once again and stuff like that sort of really tribute this episode and stuff like that, and give sort of pay my respects and stuff like that to sort of like him and his family and stuff, the band and all sort of the fans of the band and all that, because it's really sad news and stuff like that. And what I mean, I feel like definitely I want to sort of give this guy the appreciation and stuff like he deserves. So sort of want to just sort of put that out there sort of once again. Today and stuff on the episode and stuff once again, we've got to do the song recommendation. Like you know what I mean? You got to, you got to do the song recommendation because I need to show that I know loads of music knowledge. Nah, if you've seen in previous episodes, me describing the song recommendations, oh my God, it's just terrible. I'm like, I like this song and it sounds good. And I take a punt at what genre it is and don't really describe much else about it. It's sad because it's true. But anyway, today's song recommendation is going to be a song called Microaggression by the band Coach Party. I actually recently got to see Coach Party perform, and it was such a cool moment. It was so amazing. I even got to meet them actually and stuff, and I'll show a photo on screen and stuff of me being able to meet them and stuff. They're a fantastic band, and Microaggression is a fantastic song from their latest album, Killjoy. So it's a fantastic kind of like a bit grunge rocky, very that indie rocky sort of style sort of song and stuff like that. Very much has like sort of an indie sort of flourish sort of to it and stuff, and just has those usual kind of rock, like grunge rock, sort of indie rock elements and stuff that you love and stuff. It's quite a short song and stuff like that. It comes and goes and stuff. It's got a little bit of that kind of that metal sort of impact. You kind of get what I'm trying to get at and stuff like that, but in a way that's in that indie rock style and stuff. It's a fantastic song, fantastic lyrics and stuff. It's a song that you guys should definitely go check out. But anyway, now to jump into the main portion of this episode, the interview portion, episode 27 of the show. I'm going to be honest, a teensy little bit of spit came out there, and I was going to not acknowledge it, but I'm like, I feel like I can't not now. I've got to have some self-awareness, you know. It makes me seem like an impressive host because we all know the beard ain't doing that. But anyway, welcome to what am I doing? Welcome stuff to the show. A reactor and stuff, a now current member of the Renegades React YouTube channel, and also he is a music artist and stuff under the name Six Scars, and he's also currently starting a new band, or has started a new band recently, sorry, called KillbateOverdose. Welcome to the show, JT. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have you on. You had to deal with that whole rambly intro where I'm spat in absolute crap, and I'm so sorry about that.
Hey, I dig it. I got to know you a little bit better. Self deprecation is my shtick.
Yeah, but self-deprecation's good. But if you keep doing the same joke, then I'm just boring. I'm self-deprecating in my own self-deprecation joke. That, my friends, is what you call impressive.
That's a self deprecation inception. Like, is that?
Yeah, can we get a movie on that? Is Matt Damon available?
It
I
would
think
have to
it's an
be Matt
Inception,
Damon.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I know you know your movies because I can see a couple. You got a Logan poster, or you know your comic books and all that. I'm terrible when it comes to comic books, films. My knowledge is bad, like and
Oh,
stuff. I'm guessing you're a big fan of that stuff.
yeah. Inception is actually one of my favorite movies of all time.
So how fitting. We will jump into your song recommendation and stuff like that. It's something I like to do, sort of all my guests, and so we'll jump into that. But now we're on this and stuff like that. Like, tell us about your love of film and all that. I wasn't actually going to bring that up actually.
So, I mean, I'm nowhere near the level of some people, but I am a like diehard Christopher Nolan fan. Absolutely love, like, the more epic the movie, the more I'm gonna sit down and watch it. But I love movies ranging from Oppenheimer to all the way to, like, cheesy 70s and 80s horror movies. So it's really just you can kind of throw a dart on the board, and I'm probably gonna at least have a movie that I can pick out of the genre.
I'm trying to think, have I watched any Christopher Nolan film? I must have watched one at some point, and so I'm so.
um
This is what I mean. My knowledge is so bad. Like, you might have to help me.
Batman, the Dark Knight, like the Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Obviously, yeah. I didn't even. Yeah, of course, yeah. Obviously, got the Batman thing in the background and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Well, did he do another famous film series? I'm trying to think now. I swear there was another one.
let's see, what else did he do? He did Dunkirk. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. Dunkirk.
yeah,
Yeah,
Oppenheimer is really good if you've not seen that one.
yeah. I think this. I might be thinking of somebody else, but yeah, I never watched Oppenheimer. Never watched
Oh
it.
man, it's really good. It's like almost 3 hours long, but you won't regret a second of it.
Did you actually watch it in the cinema, or like did you watch it when it was like on DVD streaming?
I wanted so bad to get to the theater to see it, and I was not able to. But I
Oh
got to watch
damn.
it at home, which is kind of still a cool experience. Put your headphones on and then turn the bass up and then enjoy all the explodey things.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched it. Obviously, I knew obviously in cinemas everyone's talking about it, whatever, and I never saw it, so I might have to now and stuff. We've opened with a movie recommendation, so that's a little bit
Yeah.
different for this episode. Like, sort of, what would you say and stuff like that would be your song recommendation for this episode?
Okay, so this is gonna seem a little egotistical, but you did just mention that I am in a band called KillbateOverdose. What the listeners and watchers of the podcast don't know is that is with Nathan and Jacob and Nic from the Renegades. And we just dropped our newest single, Carpet Farmer. So you all should just check that out. It's more industrial metal, like think Static X, Rob Zombie, Power Man 5000 style. And we'd love it if you checked it out.
Oh yeah, and you guys definitely should do. Nick and Nate have previously been on the show and stuff like that. They were fantastic guests and stuff like that, you know. So you definitely got. I've got a fantastic guest here with JT. Two other fantastic guests are in this band, so you've definitely got to check that out. 100% and stuff. See, all good music recommendations. Once again, you know what I mean. We're bringing you all the top alternative stuff, rock stuff. We're like MTV if it was still cool. But anyway.
Ah, you're not wrong.
It's even sadder for me because I am sort of British for starters, so the MTV impact, like, I don't think it really hit here as much. So it wouldn't have been the exact same if I was like sort of yeah, if I was in America. But I wasn't the MTV generation, so the only MTV I've ever known is the reality TV show one.
Oh man, okay, that's harsh.
No, I'm not trying to say you're old. I'm just saying my experience. I'm just saying.
I'm just no, I'm just teasing you. I still remember watching like TRL back in the day, and seeing Corn on there, and like you name it, everybody was on MTV. And then to see what it became, man, it was like MySpace. Like watching what MySpace became was heartbreaking to me. Just flaunt your youth at me. It's fine.
Yeah, because MySpace would have been the because I've actually spoke about it on the show before actually. MySpace was like when that started to really start to peter out, it was like 2007 or 8. So
Yeah,
I would have been it would have been too young for me, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, would have been too young.
that just that just hurts the brain.
This is what I do on the Joining Me Today podcast. I just make all my guests feel sad about themselves. I self-deprecate and make them feel old. This is what you get on this show.
I'm here for it. I signed up for it.
Sort of like on that note though and stuff like that, like speaking of like watching things growing up and stuff like that, what was your sort of relationship actually with music and stuff like that growing up? Because obviously we spoke a little bit about you're doing music now, and I know you're a big music fan. I know you've got a YouTube channel with Nate at the moment where you like you react to music and all stuff like that, but yeah, where did it all start for you, music?
So for me, I came up in a like a church slash choir type upbringing. So like music was always kind of prevalent, but I wasn't introduced to like any kind of metal or anything until I was about 7. The very first taste of metal I ever got was watching Sting rappel down from the rafters in WCW to Seek and Destroy by Metallica live. And I was like, what in the world is this? Like, I need all of this in my life. And then my brother actually introduced me to like Rob Zombie afterwards, the Beatles, you name it. And just like it formed so much of the taste that I went on to have. And then as I became a teenager, metalcore was, really starting to pop off in like 2004, 2005. I fell in love with Kill Switch, Trivium, Darkest Hour, you name it. And then on the other side, like I'm a diehard new metal fan. So like Linkin Park, Deftones, Mudvayne, just all over the place, really. And they kind of all came to a head when I was like 16, 17 years old when I started learning how to do vocals. And fun fact, KillbateOverdose is actually the only band I've ever been in.
Wow. Because I know obviously you've done solo work and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but you hear so many people, they're like, yeah, I've been in like 3 or 4 bands. So yeah, like Killbait Overdose is your first band then.
Yeah. That when they asked me to audition and everything, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be cool. And then I had no idea I'd actually get it. But like 2.5 hours later of an audition, yeah, here we are a year and a half later.
Well, I'm sort of maybe then assuming then, I might be sort of wrong on this and stuff, but would that have been the first time you properly met Nate and Nick and the like sort of like was that the first time you met Nate and Nick?
Yeah, so I met Nate like I knew Jake through a mutual friend, and then Jake, he was previously on the Renegades. I know he's not been around for a while, but maybe the listeners will know. But anyway, I knew him through a mutual friend, and he heard my Six Scars music and asked me to audition. And then that was the first time I ever met Nate or Nick, and I was like, oh, this is nerve wracking. because you're just like you're performing in front of new people, and you're just like, I hope I sound okay because they're not able to give me any feedback. But he was really welcoming. I mean, you've conversed with Nate. You know exactly how he is. He's opening and warm, and he was just like, "Oh, dude, like, we're just here to have fun. If we gel, we gel. If not, no worries." And he really put me at ease. And yeah, like that was kind of how it all formulated. And then now it's like it's crazy to think that all the stuff me and him get into together.
Did you already kind of know that Nate and stuff like that, you know what I mean, was like, sort of the leader of this like YouTube group, you could say, like sort of ran this sort of big sort of YouTube stuff like channel, or was it something you didn't find out till after the audition?
So I knew beforehand because again through our mutual friend, like he had seen Jacob doing them live before with Nate, and he told me about it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But he didn't actually like Nate is not the kind to brag. Like he's never gonna
Oh
do
yeah,
anything
no,
like
he's
that.
not, is
But like
he?
he's just really modest. No, he's just not. And when I didn't ask him about it probably for like 2 or 3 months after I got voted in.
It's been like fantastic and stuff like that, seeing you and stuff like that, like now like doing work and stuff like that with Nate and all that. And sort of how did that stuff all like come about in terms of you working with Nate and stuff, and specifically like how did that Renegades Records channel come about? Because I think it's awesome as a music fan. It's so amazing to see because Nate really never really did too many music reactions, so now he's doing them more. It's fantastic. So how did that all come about?
So he actually approached me probably close to 3 or 4 months ago. And he was like, so I got this idea, like maybe of bringing you on. You have, good chemistry with me. You have good personality. We think people would enjoy seeing your reactions. I was like, oh, okay. And then I slowly started being on some of the Renegade Reacts videos. And then he was like, well, I have this idea that maybe we could do a music reaction channel. And then I was like, oh, okay. Because, like, aside from the Renegade Records, he also is on the Six Scars channel. Um, and me and him do basically nothing but metal reactions, some that I've heard and some that he hasn't heard. Whereas on his can tend to be a little bit more, lighthearted or whatnot. But I digress. Basically it came about and he was like, well, let's try this and see how we do. And then we came up with the if you're a viewer of our channel, the math chart, which is the metal as chart.
The JMT
And we
podcast safe version.
yeah, the metal as flip chart. And it's kind of become this signature thing, man. Like we love doing it, dude. Like we're almost, I think, 60 reactions in now.
That's great. Yeah, it's like because I remember like what first seen like I think it was when you guys had done about 6 or 7 reactions, or it was whenever you guys I think did the Eminem one. I think that
Oh
was
yeah.
when it was either that one or when Nate had shouted it out. So it was quite early on, and it's crazy to think you guys have now reacted to so many songs. Obviously, he's done stuff with you and stuff like that, and it must be cool for you because you don't come from the reaction sort of space, that kind of space. So what's it like for you jumping into this kind of world of doing all this stuff?
So I mean, a lot of people when they see me up here like being interviewed or things, or even on my podcast, they're like, oh, you're natural at this. It's like, dude, I struggle with it every single day. Like I deal with a lot of like, just appearance issues for myself. So like being on camera, like the reaction style where it's that wide frame, man, that took some getting used to.
It
But
does. It definitely does.
yeah, but man, I've really come to love it. Like it's one of those things where once we get to Nate's place and we're in the zone and we're just chatting and having a good time, man, it's just like everything just feels natural. You don't have a care in the world.
And it is hard though, isn't it? You know what I mean? When you say in terms of like, if you're someone who's a bit nervous on camera, sort of whatever, it can be quite No, especially when you've got so many people watching. So you're not just like doing something silly with your mate and you're showing the family, or it's just a wedding video thing or something. It's, this going out to thousands and thousands and stuff. But I'll say, like, from my personal sort of opinion, I'd say you're definitely a natural at it. You can tell by this sort of the rat attack we're having here. You are sort of really good on camera. So, like, my appreciation, man, for that one.
Oh man, well, likewise, you definitely have a charming personality too to actually converse with. You'd be amazed how many people I can talk to that are like deader than a doornail, dude.
Yeah, I could agree with that one. I think some people as well, you see it a lot and stuff like that, where I think some people, and I'm not saying this to someone like I know what I'm doing, I'm this, I'm Mr. Big Guy, but I think a lot of people think it's easier than it is. And I think once they then properly get into like doing something like this, giving a podcast a go or giving a YouTube channel a go, I think they kind of realize, oh yeah, this isn't as easy as I thought. I feel like it can take a special sort of skill, a special sort of mindset and stuff to be able to speak to camera, do pieces to camera and be entertaining for like 30 minutes. I think some people think it's just, oh, you put the camera on and hope something happens, but there's a lot that goes behind it, being a podcast host, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, like not to, railroad it too much, but I don't know about you, but like sometimes it can be very mentally draining just
Yeah.
getting everything prepared and then you're making sure everything is looking right, everything is set up for the person and then you're like, okay, just breathe. And then like once the camera's on, then it's like it's go time, right?
Mm.
It's just like a switch in your, at least for me, it's like a switch flips on in my head and I'm like, all right, well, now it's back to what I love to do.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that though and stuff because it can be a bit mentally draining and stuff like that because it's you're on, like you say, you're on. It's like cameras rolling, the flash, like the sort of flashlights there and stuff like that. It's like let's go, and it's go time and stuff, and it's like you know you again, like people say, oh, but you sound so confident and stuff, and it's like, no, it can be draining. So I can definitely sort of connect with that. I know, people would say to me, you know what I mean, sort of when I first started this sort of podcast and stuff, and I've been doing YouTube and stuff like that sort of a long time and stuff, but this podcast was more something that I was more telling people about whatever, I'm doing it as an adult now. When you're doing it as a kid, it's different when you're doing YouTube and similar stuff like that, like live streaming and stuff like that, but sort of as an adult, you know what I mean? It is sort of a little bit different, and I'm telling people and all stuff like that. And they were saying to me, "You're so confident on camera." You know what I mean? You're so confident. You know what I mean? Like it's so natural and stuff. Because I'm a bit more and stuff. I expect more sort of back then, sort of whatever. And so when I first started the podcast, I was a little bit more reserved, a little more shy, and sometimes I'd have my moments where I'm extroverted, whatever. But I was quite sort of an introverted person. And people are like, "You're so confident," and it's like because it's just different when it's on camera, innit? I think you can relate to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like to me when the camera hits, I tend to when I first started, I was very introverted. Like the first couple episodes that I did for my podcast, I was like watching back now. I'm like, oh God, I feel so bad for the guests. Like, thankfully, I've had them back on since then. But like, I was fumbling over words. You're camera shy. You're still getting used to the flow of everything. And then it was like, as I've gone with it now, I'm learning like to go with the flow. That you're not having to fill every second with audio. Sometimes silence can be good, right? You're letting the other person talk and you're not having to think about every single word that you're going to spew out.
Well, I'm actually quite interested in stuff like that to ask this then. Like, sort of, you said and stuff like that, you were quite sort of a more nervousy, sort of like a bit more introverted person. You felt like at the beginning you were maybe stumbling your words a little bit and stuff like that. So, what sort of made you want to sort of get into sort of podcasting in the first place and stuff like then? Because on the surface, people might say like, "Oh, then if you're that way, why would you want to do it?" But I'm guessing it's maybe it's a little similar to maybe what it's like for me, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, like I've been listening to podcasts. I'm a diehard wrestling fan, and that's actually what got me started on podcasts. So like Jim Cornette, Conrad Thompson, all of those back in like 2016, 2017. And I was always kicking around the idea. I was like, man, it'd be really cool to start like a podcast based around music. or something like that. And then as the years progressed, I just never did it. I was like, it's just going to be too much to try. I don't have the setup. Da 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 da. Well, then over the last year or so, I had the idea. I was like, okay, let me do something that might stand out a little bit more, and that's when I came up with the podcast. And it focuses on the relationship between music and mental health. So everybody that I get on there, I actually have them kind of like divulge a little bit of insight as to how they deal with things and how music has helped them. And it's like been this journey of just getting to know all these people. And man, it's like when I first got into it, it was nerve wracking because like I didn't have many guests, I didn't have a following or anything like that. And I still don't have a huge one, and I'm okay with that. Um, but it's like it's crazy to think now that like 30 episodes later, I've been doing this for almost a year.
You've had like all different guests and stuff on there and stuff, so obviously very sort of similar to my show here. And sort of what's it like and stuff like that being and stuff like that an interviewer and stuff like that. Obviously, I can relate to that, but sort of describe to the viewers and stuff. What's it like being sort of recording and stuff like that, like an interview? Like, what's that whole experience like?
Oh man, I get nervous before every single interview. It's just like the butterflies. It's like before you're on stage, right? And then when you hit record, it's like you're just talking to them, and sometimes all the questions I'll have lined up, they go out the window. Because we'll do a long form podcast sometimes, man. Like we just had an episode, it was like 2.5 hours, and it was just riffing. It was just absolute riffing. Like we barely got to any of the questions I had, but we were just sitting there conversing and getting to know each other miles apart and everything. And it's like you're one on one with this person, just like we are right now, and you're getting an insight into how they tick, and you're learning things that maybe there are things you could apply in your life that would help you with the way that you do things, or maybe how not to do things. And it's just this constant back and forth of you listening to learn but also listening to respond.
And I think sort of and stuff like that is something and stuff that gets a lot sort of like lost and stuff like that when I see sort of like interviews, whatever and stuff. I know sort of different interviewers have spoken about it, but sort of the golden part of the interview and stuff like that is like it's not just getting content, you know what I mean? You're not just you know what I mean, just asking the questions, whatever. It's you want that conversational tone. You want it to be because it's podcasts
Mm-hmm.
as well. And you know what I mean? We both do podcasts. These sort of interviews and stuff like that we do. We want them to be more conversational and you want to feel like you're listening in it, like you would in a normal conversation and stuff. So sometimes you go off topic or sometimes and stuff you maybe take a question away and ask a follow-up question, you know, and it's like you
Yeah,
say, it's about sort of learning things, listening, sort of, you know what I mean, responding to what's being said. It's not like such a robotic thing. So I can definitely vibe with that myself.
yeah, yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I do have a set of questions that I'll ask each artist or band that's on, but then I'll also throw questions in. Like some of my personal favorites are like, if you were a pizza, like what kind would you be? Or like what type of food would this band be if you were one? Or like if the walls that you wrote your songs in could talk, what would they say? Just, random things like that to just kind of spice things up and, change it up.
Oh yeah, and stuff. And from the little bit I've seen of your podcast, I feel like you're definitely good at that, like having those more serious discussions, conversations, and then sort of making it light-hearted, and it doesn't feel awkward or forced or fake. Like genuinely, it feels like it's like I said, it's two people and stuff like that, or like multiple people sitting there, sort of having a real chat. You know what I mean? You know, having a real good conversation. So if you guys could definitely check this guy's show out, you definitely should and stuff. And are you going to pay me for all the praise I'm giving you? We're going to
Yes.
PayPal and
Yes. Well, okay, first there's two things I'll say, and that is one, thank you so much for actually watching and enjoying it. And the comment that you just gave me about it being a conversational tone and friendly, that means the world to me. And two, as far as payment goes, I want you on the podcast.
look at me. You don't want me on.
Let's do it, man.
I'd be yeah, but I'm not. I ain't got no musical talent. You have people that have got real musical talent. You know what I mean? Like
Dude,
I just
I
collect
got
vinyls.
I got everybody that goes on there, man. Not just musicians. I have photographers lined up. I have music lovers. Like I'm getting ready to start another once a month podcast with somebody who doesn't play anything, but he's just a diehard music fan. So like it's for everybody.
Why did you never have are you any plans to have Nate on? And so because I did find it interesting because you say that and stuff. Is there any plans to have Nate on the show? Because he'd be a fantastic guest for your show.
Oh, absolutely. I actually want to have the entire band on the show as like our debut, because I think that would be fitting. And my plan, like I'm still wanting to work it out with Nate, but I'd actually like to do it at his place where we're all just sitting on the chairs and everything, and it's much more relaxed. And then it would just literally be my first sit down interview face to face. So I think that'd be cool to knock that off the bucket list for me, but also get our first interview out there. And I told Nate I want to have a one on one with him because like me and him will talk when he's dropping me off from band practice, and we'll sit there and talk for like an hour. Like it's just you've seen us on the live streams, man. You know how
Yeah.
we are. But imagine that amplified by like a million.
Oh, a bit, that would be fantastic though. It really would be. We spoke a little bit and stuff like that about and stuff your own sort of music endeavors and stuff like that. We spoke obviously about your new band Overdose and stuff featuring Nate, Nic, and Jacob from the Renegades. And I know you've done some of your own solo stuff and all stuff like that. But what made you want to actually start making music in the first place as opposed to just being a listener? What got you into this whole world of actually making music?
So for me, making music, man, it like I tried my hand out when I was like 12 years old on guitar. I'll still fiddle around, just some rhythm, nothing major. And then I was like, well, I like acoustic, but it's not heavy enough. So then I switched to electric. I was like, I like guitar, but it's not emotional enough. So then I switched to like trying to learn some keyboard. And I was like, well, this is emotional enough, but it's not heavy enough. So then I was like, I remember when I was 17 and I started creating my own songs and then singing for the first time, and I was like, holy crap, this is I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. At the time, I had no idea that I'd ever get the chance to do it, but like ever since 2020, under the Six Scars moniker, I've released over 45 songs.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, in that amount of time, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Is that all of them albumified? Like, sort of, what is the sort of
there's
breakdown of?
there is two full length albums, two EPs, and I have 20 waiting to be recorded right now.
Wow, that is correct. Is that more, if you don't mind, sort of me asking and stuff? I know it's a little bit of my naivety here, but is that more of a thing that's big in metal, sort of doing a lot of songs on an album, releasing a lot of songs? Because in my experience, I don't have too much of an experience in metal, but from the sort of my sort of dipping into it a little bit, I notice a lot of the big metal bands have got a lot more albums than stuff like my bands that I'm into. So I think of like your Paramours, Panic at the Discos. I'm more that alternative rock and emo, that kind of stuff. I feel like when you compare it to metal, there's a lot more music. So is that just like a thing with metal? Then they just release more songs.
It's man, I think like as far as because obviously like the big artists, I'm not gonna take it to a corporate bashing level, but like the big artists, they obviously get pushed a lot. And as far as like the smaller bands, if you're not familiar with like the Spotify algorithms, if you're not putting out a song like literally every month, you're losing viewers and listeners. It's just like YouTube, right? Like
Mm.
you drop off YouTube for a while, you lose yourself in the algorithm. And it was more for me like in all transparency, I purchased my instrumentals. I am not talented enough to actually make them. All credit to the people that produce my music. They're phenomenal. But anyway, I released the first two albums within a year of each other, and then I was like, well, I kind of want to stay a little relevant because I'm not making much music right now or being recorded. So I was like, I'll do single releases. And that's been the model. Like a lot of the model for metal or rock in general is you release 3 to 4 singles and then you release what's called a digipack EP. And it's just all 4 tracks in one compilation. And sadly, like I hate it that it's the model because I'm an album guy. Like I love sitting there doing an album because then you get the full story, right?
Yeah.
But to me, and I'm just speaking for myself here, too many people have a TikTok brain where like they just want they want what they heard and then they're on to the next.
Oh yeah, it's because I have noticed that it's a lot more EPs are becoming more of a thing, I feel, and I feel like album a lot of people are saying is the album, the idea of the album dying and stuff, and I don't know if I'd sort of agree with that, but like you say, it's the EP culture's the thing that, like you say, it's that TikTok thing of quick couple of songs, that's all I want. Yeah, who's the next artist? Who's the next thing? So yeah, so it's crazy. That is a thing then, you say.
Yeah, like I mean, to me, I don't know if the album is dying, but it's definitely changed.
Yeah.
Like anymore, it used to be, you heard the single and then you waited for the rest of the album to come out, right? A band would drop one or two singles, and then 2 months from then they'd drop the album. And now it's like you're hearing all the songs on the album before they're ever actually put in an album, and then they just release it. And it's like, this is really freaking weird.
It is, and it's like you say though, it's the album and stuff like that. I know that artists like Eminem and stuff have said about it. I think Adele's has said about it, like where they say you need to listen to these albums each song in a row, or you won't get the story. And then when you're getting, like you said, it's all broken up and all this, it's you're not getting the proper experience, are you?
No, no, and I know a lot of people in like my independent community for music that do a lot of EPs. Like I know people that will drop them every month, dude. Like 4 or 5 tracks every single month, and I'm like, I can't keep up with you all. You all are amazing. You're rock stars, but each one tells a story, dude. It's like a self-confined story, and I think that's where we get lost. Like we break apart all the stories, and then we're like, well, we're dissecting one song and we're judging it that release off of one song when we don't know the whole album. And there's just something lost, you know?
Yeah, it's like watching a movie and stuff, but like, or TV show is a better example. And it's like starting at episode 5 and saying, "This is my review of the show," and it's like, yeah, but you ain't seen the context of what's led to that point, so it's a different experience, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Especially like for me, I'm a storyteller when it comes to my music. Like each one of my albums has a story behind it, basically. And then if you listen to it and listen to the lyrics, you'll kind of get the gist of it. Like that's what I strive for. Not everybody has to be that way, but I wish they were.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And sort of on that note then and stuff like that, you obviously you do sort of music more in that sort of metal genre and stuff. You said about your love of metal and stuff like that growing up, sort of going through your teen years and stuff like that. And a lot of people and stuff, I'm quite sort of a bit of a fan of metal, not as much as sort of many other people. I'm still sort of dipping my toes a bit more over time into it and stuff. Like I said, my background's the more alt rock and all that. That's more indie rock. That's very much more sort of my sort of thing, being British and all that where we had a lot of metal stuff over here, but I always feel like, like I said, if you're sort of more my age, that's more what you've grown up with and stuff like that. If you've been into alternative music and stuff, as opposed to less metal stuff, I feel like in America, metal's just always there, at least sort of from my perspective. But sort of, well, how would you sort of say like why do you love metal? Like why is it specifically metal is something you love, especially when it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't understand why it's so amazing.
Oh man, like for me, there is nothing better than getting up and just ripping the loudest scream you can and getting all of your frustrations out. Um, One of the things I hate, and I don't know if you've ever encountered this with anybody, is like they say that metal does not take talent. It's like, oh,
Facts.
you're just screaming like that's it. It's like, go try it.
Yeah, it's true though. People say that, and I'm like, no, like get like you say, give it a try. It's people need to try it, don't they? And then they'll probably appreciate how hard it is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, but like for me, man, it's the aggression. It's the melodies of the guitars or the drums beating in my ears when I'm listening to it, and it's just like it. Oddly enough, I can listen to the most angry metal music and be the happiest little kid that I was.
And like, do you feel like sort of a little part of it for you as well and stuff like that is that because you've sort of been into it so long, it's like it's now a nostalgic thing. It's not just something you love, but it sort of brings you back and stuff like that to sort of times in your past, whatever. And then you listen to new music, and then you feel like this is like you know what I mean. You get all this mixture of feelings. It's like feelings of this is new, this is vibrant, this is great, and sometimes it's that nostalgic feeling, listening to things when you were younger and stuff because it's always been in your life. It's like you've now formed a different relationship with it probably now.
Oh man, I tell everybody like music is my first wife. Like that will forever be my first love because like I mean it's like you said it's nostalgic. It takes me back to the days of first hearing the bands that I now try to emulate and like want to be still. And it's like when I'm sitting there on my Spotify and it's like 2000s throwback metalcore, I'm like, oh, I'm freaking old, but I love all these songs so much, and it defined who I am, and it's so intrinsically linked to who I am as a person. Like I don't know who JT would be without metal, and I don't think other people around me would know who the hell I was without metal.
Oh, that's incredibly sweet to hear and stuff like that because I can definitely relate to that. I've said it on this podcast before. It took me sort of years to even figure out that I loved music as much as I did because I always saw it as, oh, I'm not a music person. I'm a this sort of person. I'm a sporty person. I'm a gaming person, and I love those things so much. But I I feel like I've always kind of loved music, but I never accepted that I did. So I didn't properly appreciate and really get into music and stuff, or at least sort of actively be like, I'm on Spotify, I'm listening to this, listening to that, as opposed to just things here and there listening to music, like properly being in the world of music. And so I feel like I never sort of did that till I was about 16 or 17 and stuff like that, maybe a little bit earlier than that and stuff. So like for me, it was a little bit later in terms of my love of music, but for me, I feel like it's always been a part of my life now because I love it so much. To me, it's so intertwined with my life, and I never thought I'd get to that state. Like I said, because back in the day, I wasn't really into it. I would never imagine I'd be sitting here now with a Paramore shirt on, you know what I mean, talking about music. I thought it'd always be gaming, you know what I mean? And for me, I can relate to that. Like, music is such an important part of my life now. It's sort of like I'd maybe not say like sort of for myself personally, it's like the most like it's not my number one thing, but I definitely would say it is very up there. It's so a part of my life now that I'd probably say it's bigger than pretty much all my other interests when it wasn't when I was younger. So we've got slightly different experiences, but I can definitely relate to you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, for me, man, music and writing, just music in general, has become this outlet that, like, I really don't know where I would be without it. Like, it's just it boggles me to think that there was a time where I didn't know it, and it's like it seems that's a lie. Like that's how it's like. Oh, that's just a lie. It was always there.
Unfortunately and stuff, we've come to the like near to the end of another episode and stuff like that of the show of the JMT podcast and stuff. It's been fantastic having yourself on the show and stuff like that. We've gone for a whole roller coaster of emotions. We've been having a laugh. We've sort of bonded about music. I've made jokes about how rubbish I am as a person. So it's been a fantastic episode.
It's your shtick, man. That's what you get. You just got to copyright it.
God, I'll become the self-deprecating podcast. That's amazing. Not the
you,
self-help podcast, the self-deprecating.
there you go. The joining me today self-deprecating podcast.
Oh my God, I need to have that. Oh my God, sorry. I've just got to say this. That would be a fantastic name for a podcast, self-deprecating podcast, playing off the
Yes, it
self-help
would.
podcast. Oh my God, that'd
Yes,
be
it
like a
would.
comedy podcast. I've just come up with a creative idea and you've helped me. Oh, this
There
is
you go.
amazing. Sorry, I
Free of
just had to.
charge.
I'll pay you royalties. It'll be 1%. Or no, what's the Spotify thing? 0.003%.
Oh, screw you. Go back to self-deprecating.
Ah, that's it. We're fighting now. See, I told you it was a roller coaster of emotions.
You're lucky you're across the pond.
We're gonna swim over, and it's like I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
just
waking up and like, what's JT doing here?
I'll just be screaming in your face. You're just like, oh God.
How many places in the UK can you name?
Not many, man. Not many.
Because as a British person, I can think of so many American places, but when you flip it on its head, like Americans and stuff like that, I feel like they don't know quite a bit about Britain, and it fascinates me being on the opposite end. You see what I mean?
I have a friend over in the UK, so like I know some of the smaller provinces where he's at, like Maidstone and Kent, and things like that. But like I'm ignorant, man.
I just always like doing that because sometimes Americans surprise you with how much they know, and you're like, oh yeah, and then others it's like, you hear that thing of like when people ask where you're from, whatever, if you're from the UK, and they're like, how much outside of London are you? And I'm like, can't really. Is London the only place? I just thought of that. It was funny. Well, actually, a little other thing as well. I spoke about this in my last episode. Time zones. How do you guys deal with it?
So, I mean, it's way different for you because what time is it there? It's like 9.
Yeah, 9. It's 12 past 9 at the moment. I'm getting very.
Yeah, dude, I don't like when I had my buddy on the podcast over from the UK. I didn't do mine until like 8 o'clock that evening. So he was like a champ, dude. He was awake at like 2 a.m. in the morning, I think. And I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know how you do it. But he rags on me because of how we do our dates. And I'm assuming you'll be doing the same, where like, you all think you're all the proper ones over here.
No, I had to have that in a recent video I was editing because I did it in the British style, and it was funny enough. It was Nick and so it was a highlight clip of my episode with him, and I realized, but most of the audience of that's probably going to be American, so they're going to because I was doing it just the numbers, so I was like, oh, I've got to make it universal, and I'm like, oh, come on, man, I'm from the UK.
So you do yours like, well, I guess backwards to the American one. Is that how it is?
In my opinion, Americans do it backwards because you put the
Well,
month
look,
first. It should be day, month, year, innit? You get progressively bigger time, but you do month, day, year, don't you?
yeah, yeah, we do.
I find it
Like,
funny. You guys say we do it backwards. I'm saying it you do it backwards. But that's what it's the cultural differences, though. People don't think about that stuff, do they?
no, like to me that's crazy. So today would be like 18, 9, 20, 24 for you.
Yeah, I just looked at my
Bro,
computer to double check it. Yeah, it
what,
is.
what kind of time code are you trying to hack over here? Like, what safe do you all have in the UK? That's what I want to know. Is it because of the Queen?
Oh, you can't talk about the Queen, man. It's too soon. Too soon.
I had to. But no, I
Uh,
know we got to wrap this up, man. But real quick, thank you again. This has been a blast.
I genuinely appreciate it, man. It's been amazing having yourself on and stuff like that. It truly has. And actually, and stuff like that, I've got to ask the last question and stuff before I forget it, because I know I'm gonna forget. What is the most important piece of advice you would give someone? Like, if you was giving it to me, let's say it's to me or your mate, it's the most important piece of advice you're gonna give them. What you're gonna give?
I'll sum it up and just say never give up on yourself. Times may get hard, days will become long, but the reward is more than you'll ever know.
Oh, that is really is a good sentiment and stuff. I can definitely, you know what I mean, like shout that out and stuff like that myself. And sort of speaking of shout outs, before we wrap this up, anything you want to shout out the podcast, your music. I'll leave the floor to you. Hot one style, tell the audience what you got going on.
Sure thing. So obviously we touched on KillbateOverdose. We just dropped the single Carpet Farmer. As of this recording, this coming Friday, we have another brand new single coming out in a different metal genre, just like we do. You can find us on Instagram, on sadly TikTok. I had to start that. On Facebook, on YouTube by searching Kill Bait Overdose. You can find me on my personal projects by searching Six Scars. You can find the podcast at Beyond the Breakdown with Six Scars. I do it almost every Sunday to every other Sunday, and I would love to have as many people check it out as possible.
Yeah, and you guys definitely should go check out all those things you shouted at and stuff. Check out his music, check out his podcast and stuff. Subscribe to my podcast and stuff because
Yes.
these podcasts need love. You know what I mean? We're taking over. We're in the game where we're taking over. I don't know. I've got nothing. I'm really tired. I'm sorry, but anyway. I didn't know how to. I wanted to come up with some joke, and I just thought of that, and it all just calmed down. I was like an ice cream in the sun, in the Texas sun. I was going.
That might have been the funniest thing I've heard all day.
Yay! That gives me so much validation, and you don't even know.
There you go. There you go.
But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you guys next time. Peace out.